What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Tactical Nutrition. And I got shampoo in my eyeball, so no, I don't have pink eye, but anyway, you got to know your macros in the gym, guys. This is, in this video, this is a very basic thing, but it needs to be said, it needs to be harped on over and over. Because I was talking to someone at the gym today. He's about 50 years old, in shape guy, pretty skinny, and talking about how he wanted to gain weight over this winter and really, try and get after it. And I was like, well, yeah, it's mainly nutrition. And he's like, yeah, I don't eat enough. And so I was talking to him about like, well, you kind of have to. And I think he knows, but it's like people get caught up in the workout and they forget that if you don't know the macros, it's just not going to happen. Especially when you're trying to actually gain muscle. This is why this is the toughest thing in the gym. It's not easy to lose weight or be like super lean and cut, but I would say it's a lot easier to be lightweight and really lean, right? Which is healthy and athletic, but adding on like 25, 30 pounds of muscle without gaining considerable body fat. And let's face it, this is what most guys in the gym would like to do. If I told most guy, hey, if you could put on 20 pounds of just pure muscle all over your body, the capped delts, the big old veiny biceps, the big old back muscles, all that, I think they'd say yes. So knowing your macros is really crucial. And before I get into this, I'm not saying that you have to be like obsessive about it, like weigh out all your food, keep a food journal every day, write everything down, measure everything. But you should do that at first, right? This is just like any other activity. Let's say I played baseball growing up, right? So at first I had to pay a lot of attention to my form. Swinging the bat, throwing the ball, whatever, right? And, if you don't learn and like really be consistent about the drills at first, you don't ever learn the basics. And then what happened was I learned that, and just like any other athlete or any other person with any other activity in general, it becomes muscle memory. And then you don't even really have to think about it. I step up to the plate in a game and I'm not thinking about a power V, or I'm not going to get into baseball terms, but like, I'm not thinking about these specific little things. I'm just swinging the bat because it's muscle memory. It becomes a habit. That's what macros are like when it comes to fitness. You at first, because okay, so most people, when I do their nutrition plan, and we work out the macros, I always have them do a food journal. You kind of have to. I need to see where you're at right now. I have people do a 3-day food journal. The reason I do 3 days is because, one, I want to see obviously what they're eating, but I also want to see consistency and how it's varying day to day. And that way I can show people what we need to improve upon. For instance, a lot of times the macros will be all over the place. Again, carbs will be like super high one day, super low the next, and then we're somewhere else in the middle. Fat will do the same, protein will do the same, so there's really no consistency. And what I try to tell people is like, hey, look, you do these food journals at first. You're doing it for yourself. You're not necessarily doing it for me. You're doing it so that you can see on paper, you can see exactly what you're doing, right? And then you can obviously get these numbers, because if we especially with these new apps and stuff these days, if you write down what you ate, I can find out, or you can find out easily. There's even an app out there, I guess, where you can just take a picture of food. I'm not quite sure about this app, but you can take a picture of a meal and it'll just like bring up all the breakdown, which is pretty cool, actually useful. But if anyone knows about that, drop in the comments. But what I'm saying is, I see people in the gym every single day. Like, I'll see them, the same people, right? usually there at the same time, doing the same things. And very rarely do you see people making really huge progress. Um, it does happen time to time. For the most part, a lot of people just kind of look the same. And once you reach a certain point, um, I mean, I know what that's like. I mean, because I'm pretty darn lean. I want to lose about maybe 2% body fat and gain maybe 10 pounds of muscle. Ultimately, I like to get up to 230 pounds, but that's pretty heavy actually if you're lean. And so, like I tend to look roughly the same, but I'm also not trying to lose like 50 pounds. I'm not trying to gain 40 pounds of muscle. So I'm okay. Like you do reach a point where you're trying to make progress always, but you get into a maintenance phase, right? That's kind of the end goal. And so, but I digress. It's like you have to know ballpark figures. I tell people it's like you don't have to be super exact. The more exact, the better. But the body is also not a machine. All these like calculations we come out with, what excuse me. Oh wow. What if you get two people that have the same body fat, the same age, the same height, the same weight, roughly, they may react differently. Some people react better to, like, their body is better at utilizing protein. They don't have to eat as much. Some people have to eat a ton. Some people can't handle carbohydrates. So it's not just a math equation like a lot of people think, but it's a good foundation to use. So basically, I talk about this in other videos, and I'll keep talking about it till the cows come home. Is I consider it an equation where protein is constant. It slowly changes over time. As you gain more muscle, you need to eat a little bit more protein. But essentially, when you're following a plan, your protein is constant day to day. It's constant meal to meal. Your fats are fairly constant, but I mean, a lot of times I like to go high fat. But the carbohydrates are essentially the variable in the math equation. You adjust the carbohydrates. I mean, that's almost as simple as I can put it. And if you can do that properly and work out properly, you're going to at least see results. And then you change that over time. But if you don't even know, literally, even remotely close how much protein you need or how many carbs you need and how many fats you need, and I'm not going to go into the specific numbers here. I made a video about making a meal plan. And, if you do go to my website, tacticalnutrition.net, fill out the application, I do a free phone call to talk about nutrition goals. For serious people only, though. I'm not just there to chit-chat. That's not what that website is for. That's basically for paying customers. But and customized workouts as well, supplements, the whole deal. But if you don't know like the number of the amount of protein roughly, then how are you gonna eat? Like, how are you even gonna try to track this kind of stuff? Like, because not only that, you need to do all this at first, and this will compound over time, because once you get the idea down, just like the analogy of practice makes perfect, I was saying, muscle memory is like, once you get the idea, then you can basically eat off intuitively, which is what I do, where it's like, I can look at a meal and go to a restaurant and make choices, and to the average person it might seem random, but in my head I am coordinating, all right, approximately how many carbs are in here, how much protein is in here, how much fat is in here, and making my choice at least with some idea. Unless you're just out with a cheat meal and you're eating pizza or something, or whatever. But if you don't know the numbers at all, then you're probably not going to know, based off of just eyeing it out, how much is in the food you're eating, especially the stuff you're making at home. And so you're going to end up doing all the pitfalls. The usual pitfall is eating way too many processed carbs. We all know this. People drastically underestimate how many carbs are in a lot of these foods. It can easily be up into the 50, 60 gram of carbs, oftentimes processed sugars. A soda, for instance, like a bottle of soda is about 72 grams of sugar. That's like a recipe. That one bottle of soda is basically putting most people over. I don't want to say over the amount of carbs they should eat each day, but like definitely over the amount of sugar they should eat each day. By the way, those are just things you guys should those are the simple things you got to cut out. Soda, candy, Twinkies, all this garbage. But so if you know your macros, your macronutrients, carbs, fat, proteins, at first, this is what I want you guys to do, right? Make a 3-day food journal. First, come up with your plan or with your goal, your vague goal. I want to weigh this much. I want to gain this much muscle. I want to lose this much weight. Then do a 3-day food journal where you don't necessarily, I'm not saying like if you're eating crappy, don't like just eat crappy for 3 days. You can make changes if you like, but generally eat those 3 days what you would normally eat, right? Because you want it to be an accurate portrayal of where you're at right now. I have seen this with people in the past where I have a very overweight client and I have them do the food journal and they're already trying to make a change. So they come in with this like immaculate, food journal that's obviously not what they're usually eating. It's like they just did it good for 3 days to like impress me or something. But I mean, you can still glean some information off of that, but it's really not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is get an accurate portrayal of where you're at so we can make the changes. But then again, make your 3-day food journal, write down what you ate, approximately how much. It doesn't have to be like 25 grams of this or that. It could be, I had a fistful of rice. I had a quarter plate of chicken. I had a chicken thigh, a chicken breast. I had a cup of ground beef, roughly. Something like that. So, and the time you ate, right? So when you do that, now you can see, and do that for 3 days, and then you can see consistently what, are there times in the day where you're having huge gaps in your eating? Because if you're trying to gain muscle, and many people will argue this, I suppose, but just for the most part, if you're trying to gain muscle, you can't have massive gaps. You need to eat decent sized meals regularly, right? Unless you're trying to get fancy with intermittent fasting or something, but the average person needs to keep it basic. Almost eat like the way a bodybuilder would eat. Chicken, broccoli, rice, 5 times a day. Something like that. But then you can see when you're eating, how much you're eating. And then from there, what I would do is start to read the food labels, right? This is a learning process. If you start you don't have to study the food labels. Just look at the foods that you eat regularly, because everyone has something to eat a lot of. And just take note. How much protein is in this? How much carbs more than anything is in this? Because you will be baffled at that. And then from there, you can start to like piece together this program, right? Where you start to be intuitive. And after you do this for a while, do the 3-day food journal, and then compare that to what numbers you should have. Now that's another can of worms, because it's not rocket science. I have my own way of doing nutrition plans, just so it's very, very quick and breaks down to the calories, the grams of each macronutrient, and how to break that down into your meals and snacks throughout the day. And that's another reason why you could contact me and actually get on a fitness plan or hire a trainer, nutritionist. But from there, so you know the numbers roughly, and then you compare that to your food journal, and then you make the changes. Okay, I need to add one more meal in. Oftentimes, these things are compounded day to day. Oftentimes, it's not a massive change. For like, if you're someone that's in the gym and you're in decent shape, but you're just not reaching that pinnacle, it's oftentimes just like a little thing. Like I noticed this with myself. It's like, okay, I need to add one more meal at the end of the day. You know, that's it. It's nothing mind blowing. It's just like one more meal of a cup of ground beef. I'd say like a quarter cup of rice and some sweet potato, or no, maybe broccoli. Anyway, and that's it. Just compounded daily for a couple of weeks. That amounts to a lot. But anyway, guys, that's the video. You need to do these things though if you're serious about making a change. It's not the fun part. The fun part is working out, right? Doing bicep curls and looking in the mirror at yourself, looking at girls. But like usual, it's the stuff that's not necessarily the most fun that makes the biggest thing. And the sooner you do this, the sooner you can realize how much time you could have saved. Anyway, guys, that's the video. That's all I got for you. I'll talk to you guys later.